Well, hello again, Lloyd. Here we go. Lovely sunny day. And you're sat there sweating in a top, and I've got one of the old Whitstable Town shirts on. So we're really good for. Just a reminder, look behind me there, that shirt there, although it doesn't show up, it's been signed by a multitude of players. Quite a few of them: Andy Keir, Gary Sayer, Sam Pratt, Rob Thomas, Mark Seeger, and many more. And in the weeks to come, with your permission, I know it was in the time when you played a lot with those players over a period of time, but not at Whitstable. And with your permission, I will do a little segment on that, because you've reminded me now that Mark Seeger's just put a thing on the social media that it's. Did you say it's 20 years?
Yeah, 20 years, I believe it was 20 years since Deal won the Vase. So yeah, I follow Mark on social media, so I saw his tweet that come up. So yeah, I can imagine that was a great day.
Yes, he's told me many stories about it, and he's a very proud man about it. And what that entitles him to is going forward, he gets a ticket, I think, every year to go to the final. And knowing Mark, he won't miss a chance to go and watch a game of football. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that and the players of that era another day. But we want to focus on where we are now. Loads of questions coming in, gents, and really, I'm bowled over by all this. Today we've got questions from Jeffrey, Paul Hudson, Ron, Mick Brown, Richard Tennant, David Weatherhead, and also thanks to Gary and Dan and others who've sent questions in previously, and I know others are coming in. So don't hesitate. And before we go any further, my social media guy, who is actually my son, has asked me to remind everybody to push the like button down under there and make a comment, because that actually goes a long way to pushing the whole thing as far as Whitstable Town's concerned forward. It's important to say this isn't an ego thing for Lloyd and I. This is a situation where we find ourselves without football, and it gives us a chance to touch base with everybody through the medium of social media and chat about what we all love, which is our local club. As much as we all have a Premiership side that we support, I'm a little bit unusual. I don't. I only support Whitstable Town, believe it or not. Very, very lucky to have held different positions within the club and been supporting them for probably 25, 30 years now, and almost man and boy, not quite. Anyway, let's kick off, and we'll start off as we usually do with a review of a couple of the games, because and then we'll split it up, ask a few questions, and then finish off. We finished off last time, which was questions 4, when we were talking about the away game at Ware, where we didn't win. We lost in about the 90th minute, a bit of a heartbreaker really, but what a great game of football. And then we followed on to away at East Grinstead when we won 3-0. Now, likewise, for you, that must have been a real fillip, because we played so well that day.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We just acquired Freddie Parker before the game. I think we'd managed to push through a loan deal the night before, and he was a Cray Wanderers. I think he finished Cray Wanderers joint top goal scorer the year before. So my relationship with Tony Russell there at Cray Wanderers is really, really good. And we were able to acquire, like I said, Freddie Parker in, so he came in and added into our attacking front line. And we played really, really well. I think East Grinstead started quite brightly, but we're always going to be an attacking threat. Milbank, Marcus Elliott, John Ufua as well. With the loan deal of Marshall Ratton, I believed, had just expired, or just finished for the month. We tried to get him back again for the remainder of the season, but Hesse Dover said that he would be required. So we got Freddie Parker in, and 3-0 probably could have been more. The longer the game went on, the better we got. And I remember us towards the end when Freddie Parker was introduced for about 20 minutes, half an hour to go. I think we created about 4 or 5 great opportunities, and to be honest, it was a comfortable victory for us in the end.
It really was, and it was one of those games. As a supporter, you probably don't feel the same as a manager, but sometimes you can feel pretty relaxed at a game, because you can see that it doesn't matter what the opposition are going to throw at us, we looked lively, and we did that day. And there was goals from Marcus Elliott, TJ, and Freddie Parker on his debut. So
Yeah, that's
we
right. I
wrapped
remember.
up a 3-0 win. It was really good.
Yeah, and like I said, it probably could have been more. I think Freddie had another couple of opportunities. Aaron Milbank had an opportunity. I had 1 or 2 opportunities as well. So I think 3-0 was probably the least we deserved. To being perfectly honest, it's not many times you can say that going away from home and winning 3-0 and being satisfied that you, or should we say, unsatisfied that you haven't won more. But 3-0 clean sheet away from home, I think that's. Yeah, we're certainly pleased with that.
Yes, it sort of started us on a nice little roll of results, actually, and it was pleasing because not only the way they played and the manner of it, obviously the result, as you just highlighted, was great, but when you get someone coming in first time, we hear a lot about Freddie Parker. All of a sudden, we see the guy, and wow, he looks good.
Yeah, good, great player, great lad. I mean, we'll touch upon him later on in that month. You know, it's kind of sadly the loan deal didn't quite work out. He picked up a few niggly injuries, etc., etc. But it was nice of us as a club, really, to be able to sort of to be able to bring in players of that ilk and that quality. And you know, this other relationship I do, like I said, with Tony Russell is one thing. So to have a team that had won the Isthmian South East the year before quite comfortably and were flying in the league above at that time, for him to have trust in the players that he was giving over, bringing over to me to help their development, I think that goes a long ways to showing that we're on the right path.
Yeah, I think often at our level, this interaction between managers and, I wouldn't say doing each other favours, far from it, but you need a relationship with the other managers, because there are times when you can help them and they can help you, not to the detriment of their own club, because as you quite rightly say, Freddie came into us, had a nice little burst of spell. I think he scored in his next game as well. Well, no, not the next one after that, I think. But yeah, certainly he made a difference. So when he went back to his parent club, obviously he was on a high.
Yeah, I think so. I think it just, the other thing is as well, when I talk about like younger players having loan moves, or should we say moving over to other clubs, it could have been easy for Freddie to sort of look at it that he was being cast aside from Cray Wanderers. But the angle that when I spoke to him, and I know Tony did as well, is that, look, you're going to become a more rounded footballer. Tony wanted him to come over with me because my sort of previous experience as a player, being a centre forward, that felt I could help him in developing his game. And not just obviously benefiting Cray Wanderers, but it was going to benefit us as well, because we were acquiring a really good player. So I think there's always that, when you're having conversations with managers, that element of trust that you can bring a player, and if it doesn't quite work out, then you've tried everything you can for it to be successful. But really, it's just trying to improve a player where you can. A young player in Freddie's case, to give him the experience that he knows that as he moves on in his career, that it's just going to he's going to hold him in good stead.
Well, you're quite right, and you said 3 goals away from home was great, and then the followed up next game we were at home to Ashford in the Velocity Trophy, and we won at home 3-1, and then again another good game. We had goals from Stannard, then they levelled up with a penalty, then Stannard a penalty of his own, and then Milbank right in the 90th minute made it 3-1. So everybody went away from the Belmont happy, didn't they?
Yeah, we'd again, I was kind of using the Velocity Cup as a way of, we didn't have a really big squad, and it was a way of me being able to look at, maybe players that needed a little bit more game time. Harry Stannard was one, and we were able, because as I said, he'd come back off the end of last season. He'd had a really bad groin injury, and it carried on through the summer and pre-season. And our physio at the time. Had done really good things to be able to build up the strength within his groin. So what we said, because he had missed pre-season, we were sadly unable to he wasn't quite fit enough to, should we say, to be playing in league competitive fixtures. So we were using these games where we could to give him the minutes as well as others. And Harry sort of took those opportunities. We'd already said that he'd scored the week before in the Kent Senior Cup game against Cray Valley. He'd done the same here against Ashford. And again, it was a nice performance against a side that, as we know, come the end of the season, were challenging for the title. So. A 3-1 victory again was pleasing for us, and just kept the momentum going with us. We were on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, you're right. And Ashford's one of those sides that we've always battled with over the years. I think if you looked at our average game, win, lose, draw, we're pretty equal. I mean, for some reason or other, they don't like coming to the Belmont, which is quite pleasant. But sometimes when we go there, of course, although they've got that G3 pitch, that doesn't suit us either. So it's always a bit of a strange one. But they're a good, we get on well with everyone at Ashford. They've got some decent players. There's no doubt about that. And we've ended up with players from them. They've ended up with players from us. It's just how it works out.
Yeah, they're a good side. Tommy's done really well there. I know Tommy really well. Knows the level like the back of his hand. So he was certainly looking for a title challenging season, and like I said, to come away with a 3-1 victory, although be it in the Velocity Cup, I felt the Velocity Cup sadly was. It was the way they had organised it with the group games. It was the amount of games that we were having to force in and congest at a period of time. We'd taken the fact that we'd gone away to Ware the week before, and then the next week we're playing another game. So it was like a Saturday, Tuesday continuously. And we had to try and use the squad the best, or even though it was a small limited squad, but we were just trying to use the best that we had available to us.
Well, that actually opens up a question that whereabouts is it? Oh, right, okay. Right, this comes from Mick Brown. Now, Mick asked, I've heard that since Christmas, there are only a couple of midweek training sessions. Can you ask Lloyd? He just wonders, first of all, was it true? And if so, why?
Yes, he's absolutely right. We were using Sandy Acres training facility down the road. Sorry, the names forgotten me. But we were using the youth training facility down the road during the pre-season, and obviously during the time when the evenings were lighter. And we then went over and used the pitch where we could on a Tuesday, Thursday. Again, during the more available times, depending on the weather. We're obviously well aware that come the Christmas period and the weather begins to deteriorate, that we'll probably do the pitch more harm than good. So what we were sadly fighting with was and probably things that not necessarily need to go into, but the availability of training facilities within the local area was of extremely high demand. And sadly, we weren't in a position with the people that were running those facilities to be able to get the opportunities to be able to use those facilities. So it was very, very difficult for us. We tried to make do the best we could. If the weather was really, really good, then we would be able to call in training sessions. And if the weather was bad or weather deteriorated during the time that we were using, that we did call a training session, we would come in and we would use the video systems to be able to analyse things, etc., etc. But I think there was a period, and again, you can go over the weather situation, because I remember the amount of times that we had to call training sessions off at the ground purely because of the really bad period of weather that we had. There was a lot of flooding, there was a lot of other issues. But yeah, sadly, the training issue was one that was really, really frustrating for us, and one that we're, as a club, and I know it's not just the playing side. I know the club we're all together in it, making sure that these are sort of things that we've got to try and rectify and get right for moving forward.
Well, going on from that, on a personal level, I had many conversations with Chairman Steve prior to the season starting, when we were trying. He asked me about any contacts I had. He'd asked Joe Brown as well, and we were all trying anywhere in the local area to try to get space, but they were just all taken up. And what happens with these G3 facilities now, just in case anybody's not aware, that you can't just book it from week to week. You have to block book it throughout the season, otherwise you don't get a place. And unfortunately, we really struggled, and that was the end result was it impacted on your training, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Sadly, I mean, I said before, I think it was one of the first videos we did. We just had to try and think outside the box as coaches and as managers, and even as players as well. Like I said, they were receptive to it. So we had the video system. At times we would call a Thursday evening training session, but basically we were staying at home, and I was able to make sure that those players logged on to their retrospective video analysis that we created for them, so that they were able to look at things that myself and the staff had made comments about the way that they played, or things that they can work on, improve on, things we were happy with and not happy with. And we were then able to make sure that, as I said, I was able to look at and say, right, okay, yeah, this player's logged on. So we tried to utilise it was a tough situation for us on the training side. But as I said, we tried to think outside the box to create something that was going to stimulate the players, to keep their minds occupied and keep them keep their minds on the game. They could go out and do their fitness, whether it would be us preparing them, some sort of hit training or circuit training that they were able to do, as well as preparing them the best we could for the fixture ahead.
Thank you. Well, you've answered that one fully. Now, this is a strange one as well. Look, I need to make it absolutely clear to everybody that in no way do I feed Lloyd any questions. Never do. But absolutely on the back of that one, this is from, who was this one from? Beg his pardon. This is from Ron. And he says, part of the way through the season, the club invested in a system to record games. You were just mentioning it. And I wonder if Lloyd could comment on how useful it had been and describe how the video replays are used to improve the coaching and the planning for the players.
Yeah, it was first class. The one really good thing is with Steve. He's really Steve Clayton, the chairman. He's really open to ideas, and he likes the technical side, or should we say, the IT side of things as well. So when I was able to say, listen, can we get a video system? He was the one that went out and sourced 2 or 3 different companies, and we came up with a system that we use called VO. It enables me to be able to record the game, the whole of the game. It ball tracks everything. We can highlight things for players. We can edit clips, etc., etc. It was just such a worthwhile tool, for the things that I would like to implement in games. I've always said as a coach that being able to see something and rather than explaining something, to be able to actually see it physically is probably the best way of coaching, whether that's coaching on a training pitch. But we didn't have that available to us, so therefore we were saying, right, okay, let's use this video system the best we can to be able to implement things that we felt weren't quite right or were good. So whether it be little silly things about a position of a player, whether it be 5 yards too advanced or 5 yards too deep, other options available to us. Was that the correct pass to make at those certain times? With that certain time in that instance, as well as highlighting the things that the players did really, really well. So there were lots of different patterns of phases that we'd used, whether it be the midfield triangle that we tried to work on. I remember the Welling game. I was able to highlight that really, really in depth, to be able to turn around and say, right, really pleased with the way that midfield triangle works. And I'm then able to see which players are looking at that and taking that information on board. So it wasn't wasted. You can use that tool as a way of just watching games and thinking, you look at that, that looks great. But we tried to make sure that we got the best out of it. But as in a coaching point. And the times we didn't train because of the weather or facilities, we were then able to put it up on the projected board within the classroom that we have now, and the boys could sit around for 20 minutes, half an hour, and we were then able to go through certain things. I touched upon it when we did the Burgess Hill one. The Burgess Hill, we picked up 3 or 4 really key silly mistakes that we made, and we then went through, and it was almost instant. You could see those errors rectified, because the players were able to physically see the mistake that they've made, and something so silly and trivial. But actually, it was, as I said, once we eradicated those errors, it was nice to see us be able to progress in a more effective way.
Well, I must agree with you, because I watched the Welling game, and what actually hit home to me was all of a sudden you could see what a killer pass someone was putting through, or they were moving into a position that was detrimental to us and advantageous to the opposition. And you've just highlighted that about the importance of where you stand, be it 5 yards further up, 5 yards further back, however, and with the beauty of hindsight, which this gives you, you can highlight those things, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want the players to be robots, but I certainly feel that it is a really valuable tool to be able to that a player can use. I would have loved to have it back in my day. It would have been
Lovely. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. So
brilliant.
anything that I can use that doesn't overwhelm the players, that doesn't there's not too much of a brain overload for them, but maybe little snippets of things and movements or passages of play collectively that we can improve on. As I said, it can only be a benefit.
Certainly can. And a different question from a different person. This one's from Paul Hudson, but it relates again. It just fits in. He asked, he's sent in two, and I'll read out the second one first. After your first season in charge and bedding, I beg your pardon, no, I'll go back to the first question. First of all, he says, thanks for the quarantine chats. So far, they've been a great way of keeping connected with the club and been really enjoyable. So well done to Lloyd. He said, considering the club's matches are recorded for trading and analysis, could this potentially be used for highlight reels on a fan TV format shown on social media? And really, that's probably thrown over to Steve a little bit.
Yeah, the video analysis one, we can't actually, I don't think we can kind of edit and cut it and show it online. I may be wrong, and maybe Steve knows a little bit more of the agreement that we have with VO as to what we can broadcast and what we can't. Excuse me, but I do believe that any way that we can interact with the supporters and the fans, and pretty much what we're trying to do here now, to be able to provide another platform and opportunity that highlights the club, whether it be edits or clips of training sessions, whether it would be highlights, mini highlights of games and goals. I'm all for it. I use it as a tool I use it as a tool myself, because as I said, quite a few clubs do it now. And therefore you are actually able to watch the highlights of opposition as well. So there are pros and cons from a manager's point of view, because as I said, I wouldn't want people watching how we operate and to gain some information. But I certainly feel from a platform that benefits the club that it's again, anything that boosts the profile of the club, then definitely go for it.
Brilliant. As ever, thanks. Let's get back to a couple of games, and then we'll finish off with a couple more questions. There's plenty of questions coming in, and I would just say to everybody, thank you so much, because there's no point in us two sitting here waffling away. But we want to ask, or I want to ask Lloyd the questions that you want to ask him, because that way the interaction is good for everybody. Right, we'll get on then to the end of October. We had entertained VCD, the Belmont, 1-1 draw. They went 1-0 up in the first half, and then Aaron got one back and made it 1-1 with about 20 minutes to go.
20 minutes to go, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember it being a really, really scrappy game, really, really scrappy. There wasn't much quality from both sides that game. Like I touched upon how the weather was deteriorating. And I vaguely remember that being one of the games that the weather just begun to turn, and the conditions, whether the conditions on that day were, I can't quite remember, but I certainly remember it being a really scrappy game. I don't think the conditions of the pitch helped an awful lot, but we were able to compete against a side that they're probably one of the sides that I thought were going to be up and around the playoffs. I think they finished about mid-table before this lockdown happened, but they've always been a solid side. Keith McMahon has always had a competitive team. We know what we're going to get from him and his teams. And to walk away with a game, walk away with a 1-1. I think we walked away with that thinking it was a point gained, without sounding silly, because we didn't actually play that well. But from the positive side was that, again, we went unbeaten against a side that we made a side that were pretty decent, looked pretty average, because of the way that we were able to make things tough for opponents. So a 1-1 draw, I think, was one that it won't live long in the memory, that game, because it was pretty scrappy. But a point gained rather than two lost, should we say?
Yeah, you're quite right. And I'm glad you mentioned Keith McMahon, because he's been a really, I would say, not a foil against the club, but he's always, wherever he's been. I mean, when he was at Thamesmead, I'll tell you what, they showed real class, because we were going to Thamesmead, last game of the season, and I think we only needed a draw, which we got to get promotion. They provided a guard of honour for us to walk onto the pitch. And it was such a surprise from everybody there. And it really did show class. And that was, football's a funny game because you can go somewhere and get abused for no reason at all. And you go to another game and you're expecting, I don't know, whatever it might be, but you get greeted like a long lost brother. Which really is the highs and lows of football, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I've always had a decent relationship with Keith. There's not many managers that I don't, to be perfectly honest. He's a football man. He lives and breathes it. He's been there and done it, so he knows these things. And there's no substitute for experience. So every time that I think we played them a couple of weeks before everything closed down, and I arrived at the game at I arrived at the ground sort of 2-3 hours before the game, and he was already there sort of previous 2-3 hours, so he'd been there all morning, and he's just a football man. So I speak to I don't speak to him personally, but every time we're at a game or we bump into each other, we've always got nice words to say to each other. And as I said, he's always been good as gold to me. So nice fella.
That was a surprise that day. You highlighted about the game when we went there, because that was a period when the weather was been really, really bad, and we all travelled there thinking the pitch was going to be a bog, but it played really well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, again, I know I spoke to Keith and he'd said that they'd spent a lot of money on their ground, and then they do an awful lot to make sure that their pitch is the best it can be. And to be honest, it's one of the better pitches in the league. So I'm sure we'll touch upon that later on in another day, the game itself. But it does link into the fact of how the training was difficult for us, because we did have big, large bouts of bad weather. But as I said, we'll discuss the VCD one another day.
Still in, not October, it was the beginning of November, we went down to Ramsgate in the Velocity in the trophy. We lost 2-0, and that was a strange game. It almost like we never turned up. It was an odd one.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think we were beginning to find that the continuous games of Saturday, Tuesdays were beginning to take a little bit of a toll. Again, we played down there on a Tuesday night. There was a massive accident on the M2 that caused players to be able to, at times, I think there was 2 or 3 players that just couldn't make it. So we had ended up having to rejig a little bit. I think Gilly played right back. I think I asked him to play right back, and so we kind of went around. We'd shuffled a few things about a little bit. It was a sad performance. It was a disappointing performance. I think already we were beginning to put our eggs into the league basket without sounding too silly. I think we had begun to identify that the Velocity Cup, the way that it was organised and the way it was set up, myself speaking to other managers, was like, really, there's not much benefit of doing this. I think there was very minimal prize money to get to progress. It was only 1 out of the 5 or 6 teams in our group that did progress, and you were then going to play an away game against the team in the league above who had a bye for the last 4 months. So it was a very, very strange setup, and I think it was almost got to a point where we knew we probably weren't going to advance in it. And to be perfectly honest, it was a case and a question mark of, did we really want to advance in it as well? So that day itself was one of frustration because of travel difficulties and player availabilities, and probably one that, being against my old club as well, was one that I've put to the back of my mind as quick as I possibly could, because a 2-0 defeat wasn't ideal for us. But as I said, it was one I'd pretty quickly forgotten about.
Yeah, the only highlight that I remember from that is Dan Easton saving a penalty, but that was against
that
Ashley.
game?
Yeah. Then Ashley Miller, I think it was that one. Yeah, saved the penalty against Ashley Miller, and
he did.
Ashley Miller got substituted about 15 minutes later. So not that he had a bad game, he didn't, but it's just one of those things.
That's right.
Right. Just need to say something about the player of the season. Now, obviously, with the season not finishing properly, we've not been able to have an end of season event, no player of the season. But what Richard Tennant's come up with, and Richard's been a great one at raising money for the football club, he's set up something on the GoFundMe page, which you can find through Whitstable Town's website. And what it is basically is that there's going to be a submission for the player of the season. It will cost you a £5. Obviously, all proceeds go to the football club. They don't go to Richard Tennant. A £5 to name one as your choice of player of the season. Or if you're undecided because the season's not finished and you wanted to go a little bit more, spread your bet if you were, you can do 3 for a tenner. And I've personally gone 3 for a tenner. So go on to the Whitstable Town website, GoFundMe page, and then you can put your choice of player of the season. And obviously, once this is all wrapped up, this season official, we will then announce who's been player of the season. There's certainly one manager of the season for me, and that's you, Lloyd.
Oh, appreciate that. No, kind words. But just touching upon what Richard's done there, yeah, he messaged me about it. I think it's a great way to sort of to interact the players as well as the fans in this time as well. So although officially the league is, it hasn't taken place, I think it's nice that we sort of reward not necessarily just the players but the club as a whole, to say, to appreciate the work that the guys everyone's done over the last sort of 6-7 months. So yeah, I was a great advocate of that. I've actually just got the poll in from the players player of the year as well, so I won't announce that yet, but yeah, I think I've spoken to Steve, the chairman, about it, and we're looking to try and be able to create some, whether it be a video or we'll see how we manage the situation or how we deal with it. But I think we'd like to do some sort of formal presentation from on behalf of the club as well. So yeah, watch this space is probably the best way to say it.
No, that's a good one. And leading on from Steve, the chairman, it's my intention to do an interview with Steve, probably towards the end of this session that I've been having with you. He's a vet. Now, this is a strange one. All right, he's at the school, so it's a busy time for him, even though they're off. And he's down at the football club, and he is a busy man. There's no doubt about it. So when I can find time to time down to the time to have a chat, we'll have a session where I can, on behalf of everybody, put a few questions to the chairman. So at some stage, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, 3 or 4 weeks' time, there'll be a questions to the chairman call going out. And if you want to answer, put a couple of questions down to him, fire away. Just finish off with a couple more. Paul Hudson again with his second one. He says, Lloyd, after your first season in charge and a period of bedding in and adjustment, what are your ambitions for the coming season, whenever that starts? And in what areas are you particularly looking to strengthen? Again, no naming players, because we're not in the business of upsetting anybody here. But in general.
Certainly, I don't want to sound a bit silly here, but I think the one thing that's frustrating now is how this sad period of the pandemic could affect us, and I don't want it to. I think that's obvious. We're all sort of sitting here now, not knowing when the season starts, what we've got to work with, what we've got to deal with. From whether it's a budget side of things, whether it's a player availability side of things. So it has come at probably a disruptive time, or a period that could cause disruption, considering the year that we've spent to be able to sort of bed and build a side together that we felt that we were strong. We probably needed 1 or 2 little tweaks, but I think that's fair to say. The ambitions for next year are the same as what I say to everyone. Yeah, you set the bar ridiculously high, and you know that. I don't go into a league season looking to finish 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever it will be. I think it's only then later on that you have a period of reflection and think, okay, that was that was good, that was successful. But the ambitions of what I want to achieve next year are the same as every manager. They want to win every game that they play. The ambitions of the team, or should we say the first team, are to win as many games as we possibly can, see where that journey takes us, whether that be winning the league, whether that be playoffs, whether they're 10th, whatever that will be, but making sure that we're in a sound foundation, or should we say, creating another solid foundation to be able to build upon. but also from behind the scenes as well, I think it's also well to say, you know, the ambitions of the club are to making sure that the pathways continue the same as well. So it's all well and good saying what the first team provide or the ambitions for the first team, but on the other side, we're making sure that the ambitions of the pathways, the correct pathways to be able to provide for the youth players as well. I think that's just as important as what we are seeing results-wise, because as I've said before, is the longevity and the sustainability of the football club that's the most important thing, rather than sort of 3, 4, 5 months of a first team football season. So ambitions as high as ever. What can we achieve next year? Don't like really putting too many targets on it, especially during this period of time where you're unsure of how everything can be affected. But certainly to build upon and progress upon what we've created already this season, I think that's high on our list. Yeah,
well done, great one. And I've got a couple of questions from David Weatherhead. We've got time for one of these. Jeffrey's asked a couple. I'm going to leave Jeffrey's over. Start off with one from Richard Tennant. Now, Richard's asked one. This is a personal question directly to you. Ask Lloyd what year he played for Brentford. That was, I believe, your professional debut, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes.
And he said, if you can tell him, he'll try and buy a program with your name on it.
God, I think I
so
just
you were what, 16?
Yeah, so yeah, I was released at Crystal Palace during the time of the club's bankruptcy. I don't know if you can vaguely remember that.
Yeah,
the club went bankrupt, and pretty much the youth team was expunged effectively, and probably an excuse from me. That reason I got released probably wasn't good enough, to be perfectly honest. So, but the youth team manager that had moved over from Crystal Palace went to Brentford, and he then took 5 or 6 or 7, I think it was, of the Palace boys over with him. So I moved over there, finished my GCSEs on the Friday, and then was over training full time on the following Monday. So literally left school and then straight over living up in Brentford full time. And then so from 16 till I was 21, I think 21, 22, I was there, and I think I made my debut a few days after my 18th birthday. So late September 2001, I want to say. I think that was my debut. Okay. I was against Peterborough. To be honest, that's another one that's on the back of my mind as well, because it was my league debut. I got called up on the Friday to train with the first team, which was great. It was then announced I was starting when we were training on the Friday. So obviously, as you can imagine, I was a little bit nervous. Given a list. I'm not joking. It was this fat of set pieces, or A4 folder of set pieces to be able to rehearse for the following day. Everything.
Wow.
So I went into that game just completely overloaded with everything. And then they literally kicked off Peterborough, stuck it in the corner for a throw in. We gave the ball away. They crossed it in and scored. I hadn't even moved off the halfway line. I think it was something like 12 seconds they'd scored. So that was a great start to my professional career. And sadly, it went a little bit downhill after that. But there you go.
Okay, well, that's given Richard all the information he needs. So let's hope we can get yeah, that'll be good. And David Weatherhead sent in a couple, but I'll just ask one for now. What percentage of players, in his experience, play for the love rather than need the money throughout non-league football below the National League? So basically, at our level, in your experience, roughly how many people just literally pay for the love of it? They're fortunate they've got a job, they don't need the money. Others, obviously, they look upon it as an extra little income.
Yeah, I think the amount of people that play for, I think there's too many questions within that question without sounding silly.
Yeah, sure.
Asking the people, for the love for the game. Yeah, then everyone will be doing it. I think there's only a small percentage of people that wouldn't do it for the love of the game. They would do it from the financial side. I know people that were really, really good footballers, didn't really enjoy football, didn't play, but they knew they were good at it, and they used it as another job, which is fair enough. They were no hindrance to people, no hindrance to players or the team. Good team players, but just really didn't love playing football. then on the opposite side, I think there's an element of understanding that a player will know his worth, and is understanding that they are good footballers, and they do love playing football, but it is a source of income for them as well. So that there is that. There are also people that I know. We've got a couple that play for us now. They don't earn anything. They play because they want to. They play because they enjoy it. They play because they want to get better. They love the game so much that it's actually a way, not necessarily for their mental health. I think that's the wrong way of saying. But because their love of football is so great that really the money side isn't really that important to them, because it probably wouldn't make too much of a difference in their life. So there's only been a very small percentage of people that I know don't play for the love of the game. But there's also people that, as I said, I know that play football not to earn any. They don't care about the money. So really, you do find an awful lot of a big wide range of different people, different personalities. And to be perfectly honest, I think the best way to summing it up, Tony, is that it's the same within every job. It really is. And some people within this, some people go to work because they actually really enjoy it. Crazy as it sounds, they love doing their job, and it's no different to a footballer. And you just find exactly the same as people that are playing, that are, or should we say, workers that actually they do it because they're good at it and don't necessarily enjoy it, but they earn some money from it. So it's kind of the same analogy, although the money at our level isn't great. But it's more of a case of, I think, the higher percentage of people that play for the love of the game, and then there's many that play for the love of playing for our club as well, which is great, because they feel worthwhile, they feel trusted, they're happy. We realise we're an honest club. We don't sort of suffer. We don't blow smoke up people's backsides if you just trying to do things correctly and professionally and honestly as possible. And I think that goes a long way.
Very wise words, very wise indeed. Well, Lloyd, we've got to wrap it up there. I think I could carry on talking, and I know you could, because once I wind you up a little bit beforehand, you take the spring out and off you go. But no, that's really, really good again. All I would say to everybody is obviously the usual is stay safe, do whatever the government are advising at whatever time it is, whether we can go out or not. It's a lovely day today. It's almost like a crime that we can't get out and we can't go and watch a game of football, but there you go. We've just got to adjust to where it is. Don't forget about the like button and the comment down there. I know Steve will be pleased about that. Well done. That's the one. Because apparently how it works is then, as far as social media is concerned, it spreads far and wide. So it's all news to me, but I'm a bit of a dinosaur when a lot of this multimedia stuff comes along. But we're all learning, and I'm enjoying this, I must say. It's been great fun. We've still got plenty of questions. I've got 3 or 4 I've got to hold over for next week. We haven't got the time. But thanks to everybody that so far sent their questions in. And if you've got any that you want to ask Lloyd, jot them down on a bit of paper and just send them over to us. questions@whitstabletown.club. You'll see it on the website. And I think Hayden will put a little link at the bottom of this where you can see the... so we'll call it a day there. And Lloyd, look forward to speaking to you next week.
Cheers, Tone. Stay safe, mate. See you soon.